Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. On the 9th of August 2024, a horrific crime happened on a woman doctor in Kolkata's Arjikar hospital in India, which has shaken everyone to the core. As a Bengali woman who hails from that city, I feel proud that the case of a woman's brutalization has been taken up by Bengalis across the world instead of letting it fade away as it happens in the case of most crimes against women. There's a question that arises that is there a bigger underlying problem that exists in India which give rise to such crimes again and again, where authorities and society have a tendency to protect brutal criminals, hurriedly close the case, and shame the victims? Is it tendencies like this that give courage to so many people in India to commit such crimes, knowing that punishment is rare and very unlikely to happen? To talk more on this, we have with us today a very famous woman personality, Vinta Nanda. Vinta has been a director writer of various blockbuster TV serials and films, but has also been a victim of a very brutal herself, allegedly by a very famous Indian actor. Over the years, Vinta has been a huge voice on crimes against women. Vinta is today the editor of the magazine Daily Eye, and she has been tweeting and writing various articles on this horrific crime in Kolkata, as well as various other heinous crimes that have happened in India since this incident.
How can the police hold the system or the government accountable if it is reporting to the government? Who says that these people who have been removed now will be any different from those who will be appointed? Like in RG it was TMC women who were silenced, they were quiet.
Hmm.
When it came to the wrestlers, the BJP women were silent, they never spoke a word. The system will only allow such women to come in who will do as they are told.
Do you think Mamata Banerjee should resign?
How much can you trust the CBI, which has not opened its mouth for the last 12 weeks?
Mamta has already tampered with the evidence. CBI cannot investigate anymore. It's
These
not
are
cup of
rumors.
tea. You might come under a lot of flack for saying it like this,
I don't
but
care. If there is a caged parrot, it is media.
do you
And
think
it's a
situations have got worse over the years? Because so many women workers have been working for ages in Arjikar hospital and they have been doing night shifts. Such a thing has never happened before.
I'm trading off the truth for my survival.
Hmm.
If I open my mouth, I'll lose my job. If I open my mouth, I'll be marginalized. If I open my mouth, I'll be excluded. I mean, hats off to those people who are living outside the system. If it wasn't for them,
Hmm.
this country would be completely finished today. If left to this media, 10 years from now, there'll be no truth to be seen.
A bit personal about you, and you're free to speak or not speak on it as much as you
So,
wish. Frankly, when I was following your case of 2018-19 or during the huge Me Too movement, you were in the forefront. I was so disturbed because I thought that if it can happen to someone like you who is in the limelight and who is so powerful, well connected, knows everyone, it can happen to every woman in India against a powerful man.
what was worse was the fact that the serials I was making were extremely progressive. I mean,
Progress.
Tara was the first feminist show which has happened, I think, worldwide. The city and Friends and all came later. Serials like Tara, Hasrate, Banegi Apni Baat, very forward serials. We were being viewed as people who were disturbing the apple cart. And I unfortunately had the most successful show of that time. 5 years and it was running at the top. 8.
Okay.
Within a week, all my shows were pulled down. I was not given time to round them up. He said women like you should be thrown out of the country. On television, debates were completely demeaning of all those young girls who were coming out and speaking truth. And at that time, I felt like terribly guilty as to why am I not saying it? Because if I say it, I have a locus standi, I have a position in this industry, and therefore I'll be heard. And Me Too happened. Why do you think the girls who came out have completely gone silent? You know, like if the Hema Committee report had not been suppressed in 2019, the Me Too movement would have got momentum. Me Too movement was what just got buried under the sands of time, and it has never surfaced again. And that's just how we will go forward, because every inch we move forward, we have had some success. New generation of young girls is far more aware of many things that we were not aware of at all. So before a young girl is exploited, men will think twice. Who are the people appointed to man or woman the posh committees are people whom they will who will protect the system.
Okay.
But they are in place. That's a big progression that we have made. Huge. The fact that there are posh committees. So change takes time. I
Hmm.
don't think my coming out during Me Too has gone wasted at all. If you pay women equal to men in all fields of work, you will respect women and therefore treat them correctly.
Hello, Vinta. A very warm welcome to you, and a huge pleasure to have someone like you who has been a very big voice against crimes against women and who has also been a pioneering woman as a director, writer in Indian TV to create blockbusters. So, a huge pleasure to have you on my show.
It's a pleasure of mine. Likewise, I'm really thankful and grateful that you got me on board. It's wonderful to be talking to you. We've been communicating for so long and we're
That's
finally
true.
together on a
That's
conversation.
and
Finally.
you have been an inspiration for me.
Thank
I'll
you.
come to the first question, Vinta. You have been tweeting and publishing articles in your magazine Daily Eye since the time this horrific incident happened in Kolkata.
Yes.
And I would like to quote one of the articles that was published in Daily Eye. It says that the safety and security of women seem to be at their lowest ebb with the political mafia pulling the strings. How far do you think that it is the political mafia pulling strings which is leading to such horrific crimes again and again, which is enabling that situation?
See, there are wheels within wheels. It's not as though the government was protecting the perpetrators. It was protecting them to suppress other truths of
That's
corruption,
that
of
true,
this,
yeah.
of that.
That true.
And
That's true.
what is the damage? What is the collateral damage? The collateral damage is women,
That's true.
right? So, I mean, if there is suspicion, allegedly the director of the RG hospital was involved in so many dubious acts, and which was fueling or feeding some system.
Hmm.
With the result, a poor woman, again, it is alleged that she knew some facts and there was
Yeah,
fear that she would spill out those facts.
we cannot go into it because it has not been said by CBI. It
That's
has
why I'm
been
using
around.
that's why I'm using the word like alleged, right?
Yes.
But we are just floating around in that zone. Like everything is alleged, so you can't talk about it. Something is suppressed and you can't talk about it. And when you look at how the heinous crime on that poor woman unfolded. It was an attack on the government of Bengal. Exactly what happened in the time of Nirbhaya in 2012.
But then who else do you go to? The government is, I mean, I understand that it was on the government. Who else, other than those who are in authority, who else do you go to for justice? And who else do you blame for justice?
Who's going to investigate? It's the police that's going to investigate. Why is the police not independent to do what it is supposed to do?
Hmm.
Why is it that the police is accountable and answerable to the government?
Hmm.
It is an institution, it is a part of the system which has to be autonomous and independent of the system. How can the police hold the system or the government accountable if it is reporting to the government?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's years now, and it's not just one government. Successive governments have skirted, avoided, and not brought police reforms into play.
It
So if you look at it, this becomes an ideal scenario if you look at it for a opposition party to attack the ruling party, and the ruling party to save itself take
by calling it political.
yeah, it becomes fully political. It becomes a sitting duck for political parties to use as a
Tool.
tool, if you know what
That's
I'm saying. So here
that's
we
true.
are in a very complex kind of, situation where there is no accountability. I mean, look what happened with the girls, the wrestlers who were
Yeah, I'll
fighting for
come to
justice.
that later with the.
Yes.
I'll ask you this. You know what? There has been a huge agitation. There have been floods of people on Kolkata from all walks of life, not just political. And many have been saying we are not political. We just feel terrible about this, and we want somebody to bring justice to us. And that actually spread around the world in different cities around the world. Bengalis have been protesting on this issue. It has spread like wildfire. It has been 2 months. And on 2 days back, that is on the 17th of September, finally the chief minister came and met all the demands except one. The demands were actually not too high. It was not a huge ask. And for the audience, I want to read out what were those demands. That was number one, removal of the Kolkata Police Commissioner Vineet Goel, because the investigation and many witnesses alleged that there was tampering of evidence. Number two, removal of key powerful people in the health department, which includes Director of Medical Education, removal of Director of Health Services, removal of the Principal Health Secretary, because there is a threat culture prevalent in hospitals and medical colleges across West Bengal. And number five, ensure and enhance adequate security measures for healthcare workers. This is a basic demand, and for that, to ensure that, it required this amount of agitations worldwide to make the CM come and talk about it. What does that say about our system? What does it say about our democracy? Whether you need this amount of effort to get these basic things done. Actually, more should have been done, but to get even these basic things done, which should have happened anyway, when such a huge heinous crime happened, people who are at the helm should have been removed, and enhanced security for women should have been ensured immediately. What does that say about our system in India?
Who says that these people who have been removed now will be any different from those who will be appointed?
That's right. Those who replace them will be
Who
more of the
those,
same.
yeah, those who will be, they will be replaced by. Because at the end of the day, the system is supreme. The system has to survive. The system has to continue in the same way as it does, because there are stakeholders who will never let things change. And that is what I was arriving at even in my earlier answer, that there is this problem with successive governments. It's not one. They protect each other when the time comes, and they oppose each other when the time comes. You see, when I was talking about the wrestlers, this is exactly what I wanted to say. That when there is the police, which is now coming under the central government, and these girls are on the streets fighting for justice from a perpetrator who is part of that government, how are things going to work? And will they change? Of course not. What changed after the whole fight of the wrestlers? So what will change after this? I mean, I'm in complete agreement with you about the fact that this incident, threw open the lid and everybody came out on the streets. And we have never, after Nirbhaya, this is the first time we are seeing this kind of uh, anger and this kind of agitation and outrage, right? And
Absolutely.
it has spread all over the world, just like the Nirbhaya situation happened. And what happened after Nirbhaya? The government was pulled down. A new government came. Life went back to normal. 35 or 36% or 34% of the budgets that were allocated towards Nirbhaya were not used. I'm telling you today's scenario. Did anything change after Nirbhaya? No. Did anything change after Me Too? No. Do we have clean toilets for women? No. Do we have adequate security for women? No. Do we have, proper systems for women to be a part of the workplace, which is so unsafe for them? No. And how much of outrage have we already seen before RG car happened?
Hmm.
And when RG car happened, simultaneously, how much more was happening all over India?
That's exactly my
There was
next
Dalit
question.
girls hanged on a tree. There was
Yeah,
other
I'll
things happening
I'll
even
actually
in
come
the
to
morning,
that in a
you
detailed
know?
question
Yeah.
next.
So when
Uh,
we are talking of this, so, you can't isolate what happened in Kolkata from what's happening around us on an overall level. India's democracy, India's system is not uh, suitable to women. Let me say that.
the
It
big,
is it's just our fortune that we survive it. But we
it's a
all
huge
know what the
statement,
problems
Vinta.
are.
It's a huge statement. You are saying that it's just by luck that we are surviving. The administration is actually not a supportive system for women
Not
safety.
at all. Not at all. Like in RG car, it was TMC women who were silenced. They were quiet.
Hmm.
When it came to the wrestlers, the BJP women were silent. They never spoke a word.
Hmm.
Even women who are part of the system become complicit with this entire scenario. Even they become part of it, and if they don't be if they cannot become part of it, they will not be part of the system. The system will only allow such women to come in who will do as they are told.
Hmm.
Anyone walks out of line will be thrown out, or will be ejected from the system.
Very
So
true.
it's a serious issue, and we all have to take this. I mean, I'm so glad you're having this conversation.
Very true. More people need
Yeah.
to talk. More people need to talk. I want to ask you this, Vinta. Do you think Mamata Banerjee should resign?
To me, it's like, to what avail? Okay. And I feel that sh- she is far better than what she will be replaced by.
How do we know
And
that?
that's how do I know that? Because we are privy to the politics that's going on in Bengal. We read about it every day. We see what's going on. I mean, everything is about asking Mamata Banerjee to resign. It Kolkata police did not reveal anything. I mean, they took action immediately, and within 10 days they spoke and said they had arrested the guy within 3 days, etc., etc. CBI has taken over 1 week or 11 days after the incident happened. It is almost 6 7 weeks after that. It has not opened its mouth.
Hmm.
Nobody is questioning that.
Hmm. That is
The
also
general refrain is Mamta resign. Nobody is saying why CBI now not speaking? Why CBI not
apparently
resort?
the what is
You
going around is the rumor is that Mamta has already tampered with the evidence. CBI cannot investigate anymore. It's
These
not
are
come from
rumors,
CBI, but
right?
the rumor.
So then why did you hand it to the CBI? Why did you penalize the police? So there is, I mean, like there are so many questions lying unanswered, and we need to ask those questions. What a huge noise was made when CBI took over the case. Why? Because Mamta and the police under her cannot be trusted. How much can you trust the CBI, which has not opened its mouth for the last 12 weeks?
Hmm.
Come on, tell us the truth. No. How much can evidence be tampered with? You know the truth, I know the truth. Then how come CBI doesn't know the truth?
Hmm.
And why RG car? Every hospital in this country is in the same, mired in the same kind of corruption. Look at the facilities all over the country, medical and health facilities all over the country. Look what people go through when they need medical help.
That's
Don't
true.
we see it? Where do all those huge budgets that are allocated towards uh, uh, health services go? Where do they go? Exactly where all that money allocated towards building roads goes, because roads are also full of potholes and hospitals are also full of potholes.
That's a great thing. Hospitals
You know,
in
we are living a bloody mess, Jaya, and we have to call it out for what it is.
I like your honest answer, Vinta. I mean, I think you might come under a lot of flack for saying it like this,
I don't
but
care, because I'm not saying anything that you don't know, I don't know, and everybody doesn't know already.
it's amazing. I want to tell you something. So, the chief minister, after 2 months, came and at least had a talk, met the demands, 99% of it, as she says. But that happened after a huge agitation, and that huge agitation happened because there was non-stop TV debates, non-stop coverage of it, a lot of content creation around it, and that galvanized more and more people to look into it and to be aware of it and create this movement. And then something happened, not a very satisfactory thing, something happened. That's a good thing. But as you were saying, and this was also my question, that since the time this incident happened, a lot many more brutal things have happened, and the run up to this incident also, a lot many other even more brutal things have happened, and I want to list out just a few of them. They have not got any much of a news coverage or eyeballs. I will list out some of them here for the audience. On the 19th of August, that is a week after this incident, a nurse in Uttar Pradesh was alleged by a doctor being held hostage in a hospital. The principal of that hospital was not arrested and no resignation of the principal was demanded. On the 20, number two, on the 20th of August, two Dalit girls who had gone out of their house were found hung in public from a tree. The police hurriedly closed the case and cremated those girls, saying that it is a case of. The parents kept screaming that it's a case of murder, and no news about it, no TV debates, no agitation on it. On the number three, on the 13th to the 16th of August, kindergarten children in Badlapur were sexually assaulted in a state school, and the police did not want to file a case, and the parents were made to wait for 11 hours. And a huge protest happened. Only then some actions were taken, but there is no news coverage much of that. In the lead up to this incident, just in the recent past, before this incident, in 2020 in Hathras, a girl was found naked and barely alive. She died 2 weeks later. Police hurriedly cremated it, even without letting the family see the body. One journalist who tried to go and cover it was attempting to go. He was put in jail for 6 months. Number two, in 2017, a BJP member of parliament, Kuldeep Singh, a minor girl. When her father went to complain, he was beaten to death in custody. No, and most of the other members of her family has already been killed. Number three, Manipur. In broad daylight, a Kargil veteran's wife was publicly sexually assaulted, who was handed over to the mob by the police. 1 year later, it is still continuing. No demand of resignation of the chief minister, no TV debates continuous, no content making, no nothing, no worldwide protest on it. Now, and even today in Bihar, in a moving car, one girl was by two men for hours. Same as Nirbhaya. No eyeballs, no news, no candle march, no nothing. Why do you think some of these outrages, some of these incidents get an outrage, some of them even more brutal do not get an outrage? And do you think when the outrage is selective, any real change can come in India?
It cannot. I mean, one of the, in this long list of things that you just spoke about, what you haven't added is Kathua.
Yeah,
What happened to that 8-year-old girl?
that's right.
How
That was
just,
even more brutal. That
how
was even brutal.
unjustified and brutal was that, right? Now, coming back to your question, it's the media which is selective. And why is the media selective? Because it is dependent on the money that it gets from the sponsors, if not the sponsors, the government. Right? Advertisers and sponsors are the owners of the big conglomerates who are dependent on the government, and they will be pro-establishment. They will not put their money where their mouth is when it comes to anything that's anti-establishment. So the media in no way, bigger than the CBI, bigger than the ED, bigger than any other institution of this country, if there is a caged parrot, it is media. At the end of the day,
Right.
we are actually just recipients of what the media tells us and informs us. It works for the establishment, for it to hound TMC over what happened at RG Car. So the issue is alive till today, 2 months after that has happened. But what happened yesterday, nobody is talking about because it does not suit the establishment. And we need to say it like that. I say that if you go after Mamta's government and you go after TMC and you force TMC to resign, Mamta to resign, do it by all means. But also make sure that along with her, all these other people, chief ministers of all these states that you have just spoken about, they hang their head in shame and put in their resignations along with her. That is when we are talking justice. Let's not celebrate that we went out on the streets in such large numbers and it's become a global outrage. And therefore, she has made these couple of changes in her, and she's, fired certain people and replaced certain people. We all know what that is about because the men who've been replaced will also, the people who've come in their places will also be ultimately serving the system and serving the establishment.
Hmm.
This selectivity has been going on for too long. You know how much the Dalits women suffer in rural India? And what you're also talking about and what I'm also talking about is only what's reported. We don't even know what goes unreported. In fact, what's reported is probably just the tip of the iceberg. The unreported is far, far, far more than what is reported. Today, let's face it, Jaya, a woman, whether she's a child, a 2-year-old child, or a 10-year-old child, or a teenager, or a woman in her 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s, 80s, even 90-year-old women are not safe outside their house in this country.
That's isn't it stretching a bit too far, Vinta? We
Show
have
me
people
which part of the country.
working women are there all over India, isn't it?
There
But
is
having
no
said
woman
that,
in this country I have met till today, whether it's from out of my friend circle or it's among working women, etc., who's not been molested, who's not been inappropriately touched, who's not been marginalized, who's not felt that, she's being uh, pushed on the side at work, etc., etc. Where, I mean, this is the truth. Every woman who walks alone on the street because she has to and she's working and she has to get to her work and she has to get back home from her work is doing it under threat. She is lucky and fortunate if she's safe. And she is doing it with fear in her heart of anything that can happen, but she's doing it nonetheless.
do you
And
think
it's a fact.
situations have got worse over the years? Because
Of
see,
course,
RG Kar also has had this. I mean, so many women workers have been working for ages in RG Kar hospital, and they have been doing night shifts. Such a thing has never happened before. This is the first time I've heard of it.
because
So,
nobody speaks about it, Jaya. Nobody talks about it. Now that it has come out, RG card, now we know what was going on behind the scenes. Now we know the state of the women where they didn't even, I mean, she was working for 36 hours and she didn't even have a place to rest.
hmm,
We see the conditions of the bathrooms of RG car. We see the conditions of the rooms where they are working. We see the state of affairs in all these medical centers. Forget medical centers, schools, colleges, everywhere. Everywhere.
hmm.
Just because truth is suppressed doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And just because everybody suppresses it doesn't mean that we should not speak.
That's right. No,
You know,
everyone needs to speak. Whoever
of
can have the
course,
courage to speak should speak.
there's no courage. It's just it's a trade-off. I don't need courage to speak. You don't need courage to speak. I'm trading off the truth for my survival.
Hmm.
If I open my mouth, I'll lose my job. If I open my mouth, I'll be marginalized. If I open my mouth, I'll be excluded. So I trade off with my silence. I'll
Very
be silent, make sure that I don't lose my job, I don't lose my position, I don't lose my salary, make sure that I survive this. That is what the state of affairs is in this country today. I don't know about the rest of the world. I haven't traveled for a few years now, but in this country, that's the state of affairs. I mean, hats off to those people who are living outside the system. If it wasn't for them,
Hmm.
this country would be completely finished today. I know so many documentary filmmakers, Jaya, so many hundreds, thousands of them, making films on their own, earning small amounts of money and living on it, but documenting the truth.
amazing,
Because
actually.
if left to this media, 10 years from now, there'll be no truth to be seen. There'll be no truth visible. And they're literally living on the margins, literally like, okay, I'm able to pay my rent, I'm able to buy my food, I'm able to, send my children to school. I don't need more money than that, but I am devoted to documenting the truth, because one day when people look back and want to know what history is, that truth should be there for them to see. Because left to the media, there'll be no truth for the people who will come after us after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. There'll be no truth for them, left for them to turn back and lean on.
Very profound, Vinta. Very
So,
nicely and profoundly said.
thank you.
I'd like to come to the next question, which is a bit personal about you, and you're free to speak or not speak on it as much as you
So,
wish. I'd like to say that you have been a, and a symbol of a self-made woman who has had a pioneering success as a TV director. Very hardly any woman was when you were. You created blockbuster TV serials. You were independent, self-made, very established, successful, well connected. And at the peak of your career, you were a victim of a brutal by a very famous TV actor. You came out and spoke about it. You found very little support. You were isolated while that TV actor actually went on unscathed to become carry on a hugely successful career. Frankly, when I was following your case of 2018-19 or during the huge Me Too movement, you were in the forefront. I was so disturbed because I thought that if it can happen to someone like you, who is in the limelight and who is so powerful, well connected, knows everyone, it can happen to every woman in India against a powerful man. What do you think are the hopes today for a woman to get justice if they are harassed by a powerful man even today? And do you think things have improved any bit since the time it happened to you?
not at all. In fact, if you look back at just my situation, the first part of what you said, I was a young girl here with no legacy, with nothing behind me, just with talent and drive, and I made it, and I
It was
made it so
amazing.
big, right? And that is exactly what didn't go down well with the patriarchy that exists. Without my realizing, people who were watching my growth were saying, who the hell is she? Where has she come from? Who's her father? Who's her mother? Where does she come from? Who are her contacts? What's her network? Right? When they realize there's nothing, pull her down. Who is she? Where's her blue blood? You know? And then, of course, what was worse was the fact that the serials I was making were extremely progressive.
Amazingly, but
I
women's
mean,
progress.
Tara was the first feminist show which has happened, I think, worldwide. The City and Friends and all came later. Serials like Tara, Hasrate, Banegi Apni Baat, very forward serials, came. Sex in the City and Banegi and Friends came. So I was carrying this particular, uh, you know, without realizing it, I was, I was along with a few other people who were part and parcel of that particular moment in which so much of progressive and empowering storytelling was going on. We did not realize how we were we were being viewed. We were being viewed as people who were disturbing the apple cart. We were being viewed as people who were, disturbing the status quo. We are going to change the status quo. And it wasn't going down well with certain people. And I, unfortunately, had the most successful show of that time. 5 years, and it was running at the top.
And women
Prior
directing
to
was not unheard of at that time.
Yes, and I had 5 shows on different channels, most of them on this one channel, you know. And I was running a production house. There were 300 people who were working in my production house. The whole thing was, who the hell is she? So the first thing that happened was when the BJP government's first entry happened into its first reign that came, that didn't last for too long. Overnight in ZTV, there was a change of management, and suddenly one RSS ideologue was the CEO of the channel, of the network. Within a week, he pulled down all my shows.
Which
Within a
year?
week. I'm talking of 1997 and 1998.
Okay.
Within a week, all my shows were pulled down. I was not given time to round them up. A whole world I had built with 15 years of hard work behind it. I started working in 1984 and 85, and this was 1997 and 1998. I built this universe. It just came crashing down. Everything was just shut overnight. And you know what he told me when I asked him that, why are you doing this? At least give me time to round up these stories. At least give me time to, like, transition to a new storytelling culture that you want. He said, women like you should be thrown out of the country.
What?
In
For
a
doing
conference
what?
room in the middle of so many people, he just said, women like you need to be thrown out of the country. In Hindi, he said, उठा के बाहर फेंक देना चाहिए, इंडिया में रहने की तुम्हारी जरूरत नहीं है. So that is how that happened. And soon after that, this particular incident happened. So once you're thrown to the wolves, you're thrown to the wolves, right? And it was like pulling somebody who had made her life on her own without a man behind her, without whatever else, without a legacy, without a father who was a somebody or a mother who was a somebody. It was just about like bringing me down. It did not deter me. It did not. I turned it around. I came around again. But what did make me like really fall back was when I first came out with what the truth of what had happened to me in 2004.
Okay.
It is after that that everything fell apart. It
No
came, my
support
first
from.
interview that I gave to Urvashi Asher in Bombay Times. At the time, my film White Noise was being released, and it came in Bombay Times on the front page. And I said, this is what has happened to me. Without taking the name of the man, everyone knew who the man was I was talking about.
How did
You
everyone
know
know?
what happened the next morning? Whosoever I met in the city pretended they hadn't seen the Bombay Times that day. That is how terrified people were to open their mouth or show solidarity or even ask me, like, listen, we saw this interview of yours. I hope you're okay. Nothing. Ignorance, complete pretense that they hadn't read it or anything. And this went on. And from there is when my exclusion started. Now I was a troublemaker. Now I was somebody who could not be trusted. Now, and I didn't know all this was happening around me, but whenever I went to pitch, I went to make, try to do business, spoke to people, I was met with a sort of a eerie silence with nodding their head saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. But nobody wanted to touch me with a barge pole. It was only in, and then I slowly rebuilt my life and I came back to, uh, you know, uh, doing some work. I got a great project from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a research project, whatever it was a wonderful project I did with University of Southern California. There's a department called Hollywood Health and Society in which we partnered and I recreated a whole program that they had for Hollywood film industries in Bollywood here. And brought myself back and I got a really nice, wonderful OTT project to write with a very big studio in this country, in this city.
What was the name of
Me
that?
too. I won't tell you the names. They'll know what I'm talking about. And Me Too happened,
Hmm.
you know. And when Me Too happened, I said, I have to speak up. This is that time where at least I must say my thing. Because if I don't, already they had started writing off the women who were coming out as ye to starlet hai, ye to wo hai.
Hmm. Hmm.
On television, debates were completely demeaning of all those young girls who were coming out and speaking truth. And at that time, I felt like terribly guilty as to why am I not saying it? Because if I say it, I have a locus standi, I have a position in this industry, and therefore I'll be heard. And I must say what has happened to me because this is a second opportunity I've got. First time I'd gone through whatever, and I thought, now this is a Me Too movement. Nobody is going to be the way they were in 2004. I'm sure times have changed. One was expecting a lot out of the Me Too movement.
Hmm.
So I came out. 2 days later, I was called into this meeting in this very big studio. I was taken into one room. I was made to sit there for about 2 hours before people were just afraid to even approach me. And then one strange kind of not strange, one a well-known guy who just comes, sits, and oh, so sad, I read your whatever, etc., etc. And he sat over there and then he scuttled off. And then I was called into this conference room where a big meeting was happening. After I had written some 50,000 words, which they had loved and they had wanted to go ahead and make that show, etc., etc. And they really like were pushing me to do this particular show. It was almost like a remake of Tara in modern times. There's this conference room, being asked stupid questions. Like, have you seen Separation? The Separation. We are looking for something like that. And I was saying, like, why are we having this conversation after we've been 3 months or 4 months into writing something which all of you love? No, 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 nothing, nothing, nothing. And the meeting ended. Before I reached home, I had got a mail saying that we will not be going ahead with this project.
Oh dear.
So this is what goes on.
The price you pay for opening your mouth.
Exactly. And that is, I'm talking about myself, Jaya. I was just speaking to another person about an hour before this interview that we are having. I mean, can you imagine why do you think the girls who came out have completely gone silent? At least I'm much older and I have lived through a career, right? But young girls who have their whole lives in front of them, have been made to fear so much of the consequences that none of them are ready to even come out and take the movement forward anymore. Because they know what the price they paid in 2018, and now they want at least that they're working and they are like continuing to do what they want to do in their creative world as artists, as performers, as whatever, and not be faced with the same thing as what happened in 2018.
So are you saying that it is equally prevalent as it was before? It's only that people are
Yes,
silent.
yes, the silence, it just, like if the HEMA committee report had not been suppressed in 2019, The Me Too movement would have got momentum.
Hmm.
The fact that it was suppressed in 2019 is because the villains of the whole patriarchy knew what the Hema Committee report would do in 2019 if it was allowed to come out. I look back and think, like in the Hema Committee report, which has come out now in 2024, just imagine what would have happened if it had come successively after the Me Too movement, which happened in October 2018. Imagine in March or April 2019, if the Hema Committee report, we would have got to our goalpost.
Hmm.
But how the
Yes.
patriarchy works, it suppresses. Don't let the Hema Committee report come out right now. Keep it buried. Keep it under the wraps. Keep it. It's just WCC which has gone all out and seen to it at least that it has come out in 2024. If it wasn't for the efforts of the WCC or Bina Paul and the others who are involved, who are part of it, we wouldn't even have seen the Hema Committee report now. But the Me Too movement is what lost momentum. The Me Too movement was what just got buried under the sands of time and it has never surfaced again. And now people are doubly careful of who they are employing. Can she be trusted? Will she compromise? Will she be silent when injustice around her happens or to her happens? If all those boxes are ticked, then she is right for the job. If any one of those boxes cannot be ticked, then we don't want her because we don't want trouble. Wanting justice is trouble for the system.
Hmm.
And that's the world we are inhabiting right now, whether we like it or we don't. And if we do not confront the truth, it's never going to work. We are never going to get to a better place.
How do we confront the truth? Do you think even this HEMA committee is actually going to bring any change or fizzle out as the Me Too movement?
It would have got a lot of change had it come out in 2019. Nevertheless, it has come out now. We are talking, you are talking, I'm talking. Like us, thousands and hundreds of other people are talking. And that's just how we will go forward, because every inch we move forward, we have had some success. You know, I know for a fact, you know for a fact that, the new generation of young girls is far more aware of many things that we were not aware of at all. So before a young girl is exploited, men will think twice, you know. And there is a certain sense of fear that has entered the minds of
Okay.
at least the predators,
That's a
because
good
they will
thing.
be
So you
called out.
think it has actually created some direction in terms of making a predator aware and making the victims aware,
So
and
there
there
was
is a positive change that has
like
happened.
the Vishakha guidelines came into, they were implemented. Posh committees have been put in place. Right now, we can say that, okay, that the guidelines have been brought in, they have been implemented, posh committees have been put into place. But people, who are the people appointed to man or woman the posh committees are people who will protect the system.
Okay.
But they are in place. That's a big progression that we have made. Huge. The fact that there are posh committees, the fact that Vishaka guidelines have been implemented, right? Now the next leg will be a newer generation coming in and being more careful than this generation was. Because I don't think the generation that is now stepping into the workplace is is as ignorant as previous generations were. And with these structural changes that have taken place and these committees that have been instituted, they will be empowered to be more forceful. So change takes time. I
Hmm.
don't think my coming out during Me Too has gone wasted at all. Not at
Not at
all.
all. Not at all, Frankie.
I,
I would say I became much more aware by following your case, and I was so disturbed with it.
So for me, it was like like there were these, the doors to my industry completely shut on my face. But there was doors to another universe that opened, which is huge,
Mm,
where people are more honest, where people are not part of the system. Therefore, they don't have to be pro-establishment or anti-establishment, where
mm.
people are artists and they do their things, they work independently, they work honestly. They're not aiming, or they don't aspiring to own huge cars and massive mansions and etc. They're very happy to be in the groove as long as their art survives, making sure that their art survives. Those were the people who came to support me. Those were the people who had nothing to lose. Therefore, they were by my side. I had lawyers who walked in and worked for me pro bono. There were so many artists, so many filmmakers who just came and stood by my side. And all of them were the type of people who had nothing to lose,
So interesting.
who were not making a bargain with the system, who were not making a bargain with the establishment. And that world is today much larger. The system cannot include more than an X number of people. So that world is much larger. That world is speaking much more. What's not coming on the media, that world is producing on YouTube. That's you, that's me, that's so many other people. So that the movement keeps going forward.
This is very hopeful to hear, Vidya. This is such
Yeah.
a hopeful thing that is to hear. And coming from a very experienced person like you, it actually gives me a lot of hope.
Thank you so much, Jaya. It's so kind of you.
And my last question, Vinta, as somebody who has been writing articles, very wise articles, politically so opinionated, I want to ask you, if you were to give your suggestions to the administration in India on top five things that should be done so that crimes against women come down and this image of India, which has spread worldwide about a very predating culture, a very dangerous place for women, a very, what to say, violent men existing there. How do you change that top five suggestions by you?
Police reforms. Top of the list is police reforms.
Elaborate what you mean, what should happen?
Make it independent of the establishment. The police, till it is not independent of the establishment, will be, as long as it's accountable to the establishment, will always be inefficient, will always be corrupt.
Hmm.
And the establishment will save the police, and the police will save the establishment. So, as a democracy,
Well
we
said.
need that our police force is independent and therefore it is accountable to the people. Number one. And there is no Neta who is saving a DIG, and there is no DIG who's saving a Neta. That's
One.
number one. Number two is pay parity.
Mhm.
If you pay women equal to men in all fields of work, you will respect women and therefore treat them correctly. As long as for the same job you pay a man more and a woman less, you will disrespect the woman because that's a compromise you're forcing her to make. Right?
Wonderfully said.
Number three, four, and five, all three, women need to be toughened up.
Ah,
Women need, they must be in sport. They must be there in the armed forces. They must be trained to fight. They must be trained in every which way to be muscular, strong. And let me tell you, there are crores and crores of men who are our allies. Among the many people who stood by me, there are more men than women. There were lesser women who stood by me. There were more men who stood by me.
okay, that's
So that
interesting.
is something we have to take into account. This inequality is not just a bane for women. This inequality is a huge bane for men as well. You know, a man doesn't need to take the responsibility of women. We are bringing their potential down because their whole lives they are spending.
Wonderful words, Vinta. Thanks so much for joining this conversation. It has been
I've
such a
also got so
wonderful.
passionate and carried away.
I knew
It's
it
all
would
to
come
do
out
with,
from
I
you.
think it's congratulate you for the interview you've taken
No,
because I've
you
never been so fiery as I am right now, you know.
you always are
You've
a
drawn it
speaker
out of
from
me.
the heart, and I have always admired that. So,
Thank you so much.
and personally, you have been an inspiration. I read it during the Me Too, and it has your
Thank
story
you.
inspired me hugely. A
Thank you.
great pleasure to have you on my show. You spoke
Thank you.
very well. I'm sure the audience will love it.
I hope
Thanks so
so.
much for
Let
joining.
me know